Joining us now via the Rude Guest Hotline is our friend, Mr. Neil Greenberg from the Washington Post. Greenberg, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing super. How are you?
Whoa, what's up with that voice, man?
You sound like
I went to a kid's birthday party this Saturday.
Oh, they got you, huh?
Did you get sick?
They got me. I'm on the tail end of it.
Well, thank you for making time for us. Even if you sound
this is it's like I'm from an undisclosed location. They're like modifying my voice so no one knows who I am.
Yeah, that is kind of what it sounds like. Greenberg, in your expertise as an odds maker, what would you have set the odds of me and B being on the radio, on the YouTube, and on the Monumental stream on time this morning when we weren't even in the building at like 3:45, at 9:45?
I don't even know if I would have taken any action, but it would have been a pretty big number.
It was a scramble drill, but we got it done, man.
We made it.
Obviously, a big game for Washington this week. I am curious for a dude like you that I think you do a good job of understanding what real football is and isn't, and looking at things from an analytical standpoint. We know Jaden and Terry are not playing this week. I think there are people that will argue to shut them down for the season. I don't think there's any chance that happens. I think both will play eventually. Where would you land on that kind of divide?
Look, if they're healthy, let them play. You know, especially Jaden. He still only has a year and a little bit in the league. You know, with the way that he plays, you can't be afraid that he's going to get hurt because you would never have him play, right? I mean, he's going to take off and run. That's why you drafted him. So I would definitely let him play. Get him as many reps as you possibly can. You know, I wouldn't let him be in a game that's like 30-0, but I would absolutely let him start if he was healthy.
I think, and certainly with Terry, right?
Absolutely. You're paying him a lot of money. You know, these guys know the drill. This is what they sign up for. You have to look beyond this lost year. You have to try to capture some of the magic from last year. And the only way to do that is to get chemistry back on offense, get the right people in on defense. You know, you got to let them play.
Yeah, and when you look at it, Neil, all the injuries, how much of the injuries have affected the chemistry of this team? Because we don't talk about that very much, but the chemistry was working last year no matter what. And right now, hell, you got guys playing in position and doing stuff they did not expect to play. So now you don't have backups, and your chemistry is completely thrown off.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody can evaluate this season, at least, you know, objectively, because there's so many parts missing for so long stretches of time, especially this week when we see the cluster injuries on defense, in addition to the cluster injuries, at least at the skill positions, for your top guys on offense. It's a little bit unfair. I'm not saying that, like, you know, moving on from Joe Witt or being lobbing criticism on specific plays, on specific games in general is not something we should do. But you just can't tell me anybody knows what this team is or isn't with so many injuries at so many key positions. You know, they're 3-7. I mean, of course they're 3-7. They don't have their best players.
Right.
So it's largely just whatever happens this year happens. You know, next year, try to make another run.
Yeah. This year's cooked. I do think they need a little momentum. I think you'd love to win 3 out of 4. They have 7 games left. It's not like they have 2 games left. This is while we hear it. You know, one thing I noticed in Madrid, they already have a lot of Christmas decorations up, and at home that kind of annoys people because it's like, yo, why are you skipping Thanksgiving? But you know what they don't have in Spain? Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So
they can go straight to it.
Yo, Feliz Navidad, amigo.
We have a whole month and a vacation to go. I mean, a holiday to go through before we jump to Christmas.
Greenberg, are you surprised at all their dogs to Miami this weekend?
No. I mean, they got so many injuries, and Miami's coming off of what looks like a really big win the week before. I have this game pretty tight. I think the injuries definitely tilted towards Miami. And, you'd hate to call a Week 11 game must win, but Washington needs this game. I mean, they need to go into the bye week with some good feelings because when they come out, it's tough. Denver, Minnesota, Philadelphia twice, Dallas, maybe New York they can beat, but they got to get healthy, and they need something positive to start to rally behind. You lose to Miami, which is largely considered one of the worst teams in the league. You start to have just a whole different narrative issue.
If you lose to Miami, you start to get lumped in with the worst teams in the league. And I think New Orleans and Tennessee have established a clear basement. The Jets also. But, whatever that next really bad tier is, you lose this one, you're in it.
Don't you think they can look at Miami and take something from what they did? They put 30 points up on Buffalo. And Buffalo is a team we consider a real contender. They put, Jeff, BTA. They thoroughly did that. And they turned it with 2 forced fumbles and recovered it and an interception on Josh.
But they have their guys.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference, man.
I think if Washington had their guys, one, it wouldn't be Miami minus 2.5. But I think we would say that Washington could contend with, at least offensively, with any team in the league. And, you get a couple stops on defense, and then they, too, can beat the Buffalo Bills by 30-13. They just don't have their guys.
Yeah. It's a very good reminder that it's a significant loss when you have all these injuries. Talking with our friend Neil Greenberg here on the Rude Guest Hotline. You can follow Greenberg at @ngreenberg on X and Instagram. Of course, read all of Neil's work in the Washington Post. Sports writer, stats geek, not nerd for the Post. What do you think happened? What impact do you think Dan Quinn calling the defense will actually make?
None, because they have too many injuries.
Do you think, though, they get the dead cat bounce that you see in sports when somebody gets fired or removed, and sometimes the next game that there is this, pep in the step of the organization? You see it in baseball, you see it in hockey, you see it in football.
Right, but they're not having fourth stringers as their top guys, especially at the corner position where, let's face it wasn't their strongest position to begin with. And in a passing league, it becomes very difficult. So, no, I don't expect there to be much to rally about with this team. I think it was a move that Dan Quinn had to do. I think it was largely cosmetic, both having Witt move down to the sideline, but then also taking over. They just don't have the right group. And even when they did have the right group of their top guys, they weren't doing very well. So, no, I'm not expecting any big bounces, especially not against Miami with all the injuries.
All right. Well, sounds like
you think there's any chance they can win?
I do think that they can win. Mariota is really good. I think that Mariota could pilot this team. And, again, it's an oblong object that bounces around really weird. So you get a couple of stops on defense, you get a couple of lucky breaks, and, then next thing you know, you might be able to pull out this game. So, yes, absolutely they could win. They're going to need a lot of help. But I really do believe in Mariota as a steward of this offense because obviously I think that he plays a lot like Jaden Daniels. They haven't had to change a lot of things. It's just a lot of guys playing above their head in terms of the depth chart.
Talking with Neil Greenberg here. I believe you wrote something this morning about Jonathan Taylor, a Colts running back who's having a monster season, and his chances of actually winning the MVP, which has become a quarterback-dominated trophy.
Yeah, I just don't think that you can argue he's the best player on his team because, again, we talked about this before. You take Daniel Jones's name away and just look at what he's done, even with his clunker of a game the other week, And there's no doubt that he's one of the most valuable players in the league, right? If Mahomes does what he's doing, if Burrow was healthy and was doing it, et cetera, we'd be talking a lot more about Daniel Jones being the MVP. And let's face it, running backs just don't have enough to impact the play the way that a quarterback does. I think it'll take a historic season. And even then, we'd have to see one of the big quarterbacks start to really fall off.
But I guess my point would be not talking about necessarily wagering it, but I think you can make a case for Taylor as MVP. I don't think he'll win it, but I think you can make a case for it.
I'm not so sure. Again, he's doing really well. Scoring is also up, so you'd expect him to have more touchdowns this year. I don't know if he's on pace for 2,000 yards, even with a 17-game season. That seems to be the threshold for previous winners, or at least something historic. He's having an awesome season. He's a great running back. He's doing everything that you'd ask him to do. I just don't think modern football lends itself in a way that you can make the case for a running back to be a most valuable player when you have the Patrick Mahomes and the Matt Staffords of the world that could have one good game and they are immediately become the favorite and no one's even talking about anybody else.
Hey, we always say they need to have 2 awards, one for quarterbacks and one for everybody else.
They do now with that Offensive Player of the Year.
With Offensive Player of the Year, that could be a quarterback one year.
I know, but typically they give that to a non-quarterback. I think they've admitted they have a quarterback MVP problem. Greenberg, where do you land on Matt Stafford as a Hall of Famer?
Great quarterback. He's doing great. He's another guy that I think, is kind of I think the world's waiting for Patrick Mahomes to become the MVP. I think that if he gives any sort of indication that he could be that guy, he's going to win the award. I don't think that you're going to find Sam Darnold overriding him from a narrative perspective. I think the only one that has a chance to do that is a guy like Matt Stafford, a high-flying quarterback that can score touchdowns, puts up a bunch of passing yards per game. He's really the only one that could have the type of games that could push the spotlight off a guy like Mahomes, even though Mahomes is kind of on the outskirts. So I think that he looks really good this year and could very well be the eventual MVP once this is all done.
I know you do your own power rankings every week. Who's your best team in football? We're going to go through ours in about an hour, but I'm curious who you've got at the top.
I have Kansas City and Los Angeles Rams at the top.
Hold on, Greenberg. How much do you love that he still just rides with KC?
Well, because I like him because he knows what they have. But I put the Rams up there, jumping up there now since they handled the 49ers. Remember?
Yeah, you said that.
I said if they handle the 49ers, I can see them being one of the best.
It's a really slim margin, and that's why I try to put them in tiers, because we can have a discussion of where they belong kind of in the tier. If you make a case for the Rams, it's hard for me to argue. I don't necessarily think it's statistically significant, the separation that I have between 1 and 2. But yeah, I have Kansas City, Los Angeles, and then Buffalo 1, 2, 3, with Seattle and Indianapolis behind them.
Seattle at 4. Okay. What about Philly? Sirianni made a gutsy, if incorrect, call the other night on 4th down, deep in Green Bay territory. What did you make of that call? What do you make of where the Eagles are?
I love aggressive calls. I have the Eagle as 7. But again, you can convince me they're the 5th best team. They're the 4th best team. They had a little bit of an off night offensively. I think everyone was kind of hoping they would come out and just blow the doors off the joint so that we wouldn't have to have this type of discussion where it's, there's really no team that's the far and away the best team like we saw with New England all those years or, the Rams, et cetera. There's a lot of parity at the top. And, I couldn't make a case for Buffalo to not be number 1 with any sort of conviction because there's just not enough separating the top teams. we know who the really good teams are. We know who the really bad teams are. But then it's really just, educated guessing. And I think Philadelphia is a definite top contender, but I think that they're probably behind some of the other top teams like the Chiefs, Rams, and Bills.
When does the Eagles' defense let them down? Because the offense, they keep playing these tight games, and the defense is hell for them. But eventually, defense get tired.
Well, we might see it this next game against Detroit, right? Detroit could really tax that unit. So could the Chargers coming up, and then they have Buffalo in a couple weeks. So I think this next game we're going to start to see if there are cracks in the foundation for Philadelphia. They're going to start to show, or we could be talking about them as a top 3 team if they really take care of business against Detroit and have a big game on Sunday night.
Sunday night should be a good one. I'm excited to watch that. It comes on at 3 in the morning here, though, so I'm not sure how much of that I'll see. Real quick, big win for the Caps last night. I think that was last night. The days are kind of getting away from me here. But I feel like beating up on the Hurricanes matters.
Yes, I mean, the Hurricanes are one of the best teams in the league. Washington needed a win. They got to find a way to fix their special teams. That's really what's holding them back right now. I know there's no precedent for it, but maybe decline power plays. Who knows? Just do some out-of-the-box thinking and just say, what, we don't want it. We want to just put our 5-on-5.
Has anyone ever done that?
No
chance, right?
No, I'm just saying, that seems to be the problem for them. I think that they can solve it, but again, this is an older roster now. Ovechkin has the magic, but it's not everyday magic. And, they're just going to have to figure out a way to start getting stuff done on special teams if they want to start to make a real headway in the league.
Dude, our boy Ahmet keeps asking this question. I want to ask you, who finishes the year? Who does the bet is, does Ovi have more goals than the Wizards have wins at the end of the season?
Yeah, he should have 20 goals, right? You would think.
I don't think the Wizards are getting there.
No.
Not at all.
I would take Ovechkin in that way because Ovi wants to score goals. The Wizards don't want to win.
Right. Greenberg, text BMitch for his hottie toddy recipe. Good luck with that cold or throat loss you're working with, and thank you for making time for us being under the weather.
Sorry about my voice. Te amo mucho. I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, man. Peace.
Te amo mucho y tú.